most of you been living long enough to have received probably a few brutal emotional wounds. And you get to a stage where it gets to you and you think, God, I want to get past this. And you think you passed, but the next thing is back in the present again. It just keeps coming back, keeps coming back. So I want to start off with a little bit of romance today. How many of you are feeling a little romantic? How many of you remember the first time you ever fell in love? When the heart started to beat and you looked at that little 6-year-old at school and thought, wow, we're going to get married. Here's an article I read some time ago, and this is what this gentleman experienced. He said, I will never forget the first time I fell in love. I was in 7th grade, and it was a school dance, which is like the purgatory of social awkwardness. All the guys were on one side of the room, all the girls gathered on the other side of the room. And I mustered up the courage to cross that infinite chasm to ask a girl to dance. She actually said, yes. Those next few moments were like heaven on earth. I felt alive. I felt complete. I felt connected. Until later that night, when I went to find her to ask her for another dance, and I found her dancing with another guy. I know, shocking. He said, I remember thinking, how could she do this to me? How could she so quickly set aside this incredible connection we had had? I realised that we were only a couple for 3.5 minutes, and only one of us thought that we were a couple. But still, how could she do this? As naive as it sounds, I just remember the kind of piercing, aching feeling like, is this how this is going to go? Is this how these things work out? Even more so, I was asking the question, how am I going to move forward? How will I ever get over it? Let me tell you, the capacity to love somebody is a gift from God. But with that capacity to love, we can also feel intense pain because we face rejection, we face betrayal, we face all kinds of things that cause us emotional pain. Now, you may have heard me say this before, but it's so important, I want to say it again. You can have perfect physical health. Your heart rate can be perfect, your blood pressure, 120 over 80. Your eyes can be sharp, your ears, no x-ray can reveal anything wrong with you, but you suffer in terrible pain. And that pain is triggered by your memory. Memory is an amazing thing because someone mentions a name and the emotion comes back, the pain comes back. They mention a place, a situation, and you relive it. I have a quote here from Dr. Wilbur Penfield. He's the director of the Montreal Neurological Institute. And this is what he said. He said, your brain contains a permanent record of your past that is like a single continuous strip of moving film. In other words, something that happened to you 20 years ago, you can recall like that and you see it in vivid colour. And you feel the emotion, what she said to me, what I said to her, what she did to me, what I should have done to her. And that it just lives inside us. And he says that film library records your whole waking life from childhood on. You can relive those scenes from your past one at a time, feeling exactly the same emotion you did during the original experience. Now, I've watched some of the guys on Anzac Day. Do you know how long ago the Second World War finished? 70 years. And you watch them on Anzac Day as they remember. And after 70 years, tears still trickle down their cheeks. Their lips quiver as they remember mates that were left behind, the shocking things that happen in war. And it keeps coming back, the feeling, the emotion of 70 years. You say, if only I could get past this. But the next thing, the past is back in the present again. So the question is, how do you deal with it? Well, some people deal with it by being overactive. They become workaholics. They think, if I can just drive my thoughts and my energy into something, I won't need to remember it. Other people try to self-medicate with alcohol and drugs and all kinds of things. But the thing is, if you don't handle it well, you become angry and irrational. Your thoughts become crazy, because that's the way anger and pain makes us. Some of you have heard of Stephen Fry. How many of you? That's the guy there. Stephen Fry. He's had to face a few demons in his life. He said he's an atheist. I doubt whether he's an atheist. I think he's a God hater, because of the pain that he's gone through in his life. And so he was asked, some of you may have seen the interview, he was asked, what if there is a God? What if when you die and you get to the pearly gates and God is there, what would you say to him? And this was his reply. I'd say, bone cancer in children? What's that about? How dare you? How dare you create a world in which there is such misery? That is not our fault. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-spirited God who creates a world that is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I would say. He went on to say, if it was God who created the universe, he is quite clearly a maniac, utter maniac, totally selfish. Well, that's hot, angry words for somebody talking about somebody that doesn't exist. But you see, something's happened in this guy's life, and I could make a few guesses, but I won't. So as soon as you touch it, this hot emotional outburst from the pain of the past would become irrational. When I was in Mount Gambier, I had a deaconess, and her and her sister had come from Germany as just young girls. They'd been through the war, and even to this day they have night terrors. Just wake up screaming because of what they saw and what they experienced. And Anne-Marie and her sister still can't watch war movies or anything to do with violence because of the past. Now the interesting thing is, Anne-Marie found God. And so she found comfort in God. Her sister hated God. And so Anne-Marie said to me, I'd love you to go and talk to my sister. Now these are two highly intelligent young ladies. And so I went round to see the sister, man alive. Oh, she said, do you believe in God? And I said, yes, I do. She said, do you believe that God knew about the Second World War, about Hitler rising before he created man? Do you believe he had that much foreknowledge? I said, well, obviously he did. God knows everything. She said, then God is the architect of evil. He knew we would suffer so badly. And yet he didn't think about us. He just created us anyhow to suffer. And man, she cut loose. I felt as though I was in the ring with Mike Tyson. Just got beaten. And I was standing there thinking, God help me. God help me, what am I going to say? Because she's strong. She was, German people. They've all got moustaches. And so suddenly, I looked up and I saw her 15-year-old son. And God gave me a word of wisdom. I said, can I ask you a personal question? She said, sure. I said, was your son an accident, or did you plan on having him? Oh, she said, I planned on having him. He's the joy of my life. He's the only happy thing in my life. I said, I want to say this as kindly as I can. You're a hypocrite that's worse than God. You, above all people, knew how terrible this world can be. And having been through the Second World War, you still chose to bring your son into this world. She looked at me and smiled and said, oh, you're good, aren't you? Pain. And so we become irrational with a lot of that stuff. So I want to read to you about a lady in the Bible who had a painful past that Jesus ministered to. In John chapter 4, verse 4,